When people see an opportunity, they'll run for it.
Slambini, umsebenzi awukho. Ngithi uyabona sizodlana thina. Ngoba phela njengoba zama siqekezela umlungu, anitshontshe inkomo yamuntu, anitshontshe imbuzi yabantu. Manithi niyazivala la kufanele ukuthi yontonja yini na.
It was an experience really that also highlighted social ills in that community. The first time I saw it was on social media. It was something else. It was really something else because the number of people that were there were a lot. And you think because this thing has been happening for the past couple of days, obviously the numbers would drop. But immediately as you enter the area, you find a number of police officers who are even directing journalists and the people that are coming there to say, okay, the place that you're looking for is that way.
Ngifisa ukuthi uma ngabe kuyiwo ke ngihamba impela ke ngiyowashintsha impela ayi. Nami ke ngibona ukuthi ngivusa liphi ibhizinisi engilivusa engizoliphatha ngezandla zami.
And when you start interacting with people, because as journalists, you try to get information, who's in charge, because in a place like that, you'd find that there would be someone who's in charge. But people were telling us that they were from different parts of the country. Others were from Gauteng, and they had traveled all the way to Gwahlat in Ladysmith to dig for this diamond.
They say diamonds are forever. And many here are digging for dear life, hoping the supposed diamonds will pull them out of the dark hole of poverty, unemployment, and usher them into everlasting fortunes.
There were a lot of people as well that came from that same community who came out in their numbers to start dig for this diamond. And it was believed that this would be their way out of poverty. So you get to witness different dynamics and the different kind of people that are traveling. You see the extent of desperation from people wanting to just break away from poverty. And if this is their way out of poverty and to the riches, then they'll dig and have as much as possible.
Ekuseni bebaningi la yabona kodwa hayi ngafika nangomgqibelo ngathola amatshe awu-40
khona engike ngawathengisa kunakhona ade ngisiza nje abantu abawo mzala kimi ngokuthi baqhele kakhulu abakhona ukufika la.
If you look at the surroundings, there's very little development in terms of schools, in terms of just recreational facilities for the kids and jobs, economic development in the area. How far is it from, the central business district? So if you look at the issue around access to water, they say they don't have consistent water supply. This particular development would address every single thing that they're struggling with. It would mean for all those trucks to come in and start digging, roads would have to be built. But we also do know that mining companies have a responsibility, according to the law, to develop the communities that they mine in and make sure that they build houses, they build whatever that they need to build or develop in those communities. So for them, it was at that moment that, they decided, we are going to be stern, we're going to put our foot down to make sure that whatever happens and whatever outcomes will benefit us.
They've pinned their hopes on this. For now, it seems this is their only ticket out of poverty.
It's unemployment that is rife here and also poverty. Now, as you did see that now the majority of people that were there are women and children. It's a very poor community. Yeah, people are not working, most of them.
You see, the thing about poverty and hunger is that it knows no boundaries. When people see an opportunity, they'll run for it despite the dangers that are involved. COVID regulations were right at the back of their minds. You know, you could see how one person they would even borrow each other the tools that they were using. And we know with COVID, things exchanging hands, no sanitizer in sight. If they get this diamond, then they probably would be able to afford a doctor and, you know, I get the necessary medical attention.
Everyone really is wishing that this be a true the real diamond, because, I mean, there'll be some job opportunities.
They didn't even care about that. I remember speaking to one gentleman who said, well, they will come here and want to take the stone, but they never cared to come to our area to develop our area. They never cared to, come and build roads and all of those things that will allow us to build a life for ourselves. So this is our moment to create the life that we want to create for ourselves. I mean, an entire market had been formed around that area. You found abogogo, you know, the grannies that were selling on the sidelines of what was happening there. You also found young people who had discovered the stone, selling it to the people who got there and did not necessarily have the tools, did not have, did not know how to dig, but had the buying power. They had the money, so they got there. They bought the stone until they heard that the Department of Mineral Resources was going to send a delegation to come and investigate. And that's when things started getting tense. You could see from a distance the convoy coming in. You could see from it. And at that moment, you could feel the tension that, okay, so now they're here.
There was a mixed reaction, really, to the arrival or the sight of the authorities who had come, to speak to community members. And everyone literally stood up and faced the direction.
And everyone just stood there, did not want to move. Everybody took their positions. You know, all the people that had their tools moved to the spaces where they were standing or they were digging. And we could see that a couple of journalists were also part of that convoy. We then went down and you could see them coming together to start discussing how they were going to approach the community. You know, on the other side, you have scores of people that are waiting to defend what they believe is theirs.
In fact, one gentleman, even took to the front to call for those who are responsible for issues like water and electricity in the area to come first and first deal with the basic services before they jump to test these stones.
And on the other side, you have a team, a delegation from the Mineral Resources Department who want to come and assess.
For them to do their work, they would like to go around, see what you have, make some notes. Now, they won't finish their work today. Okay. They will have to go back and analyze and then come back with a report when they are ready.
But because obviously the land is under traditional leadership, that particular delegation would have to engage the chief first before they could come in. And the chief also needed buy-in from the residents.
So bese sinothile phela makuthiwa yilo sibangaka hawo abantu bakithi abamnyama banothile inqwaba izophela indlala.
Ifila ngibillionaire njengamanje mangathiwa kuthola ukuthi i-diamond ngithenga amaplaza mfowethu kahle kahle ngifuna ukuthi ngiphilise abantu yabona.
Nami ngijabule ngafa impela mangiza kuthiwa nakho kuyambiwa la khona ukutholakalayo nami ngathi hayi ake ngigqugquzele ngakhona mhlawumbe ngiyoba ngenhlanhla ke nakho ngabuya nakho ngiphethe.
They were crystals, and obviously one can imagine, that at that moment hope dwindles. What would have happened had it been diamonds? Would we be seeing more and more officials going there, promises of a better life, promises of a better development? But now that it's crystals and not stones, what happens? I think it kind of reflects a similar pattern in what is happening in our country with particularly the forgotten communities, that it's not only until something happens or something tragic happens in that community that we know about them and that services would get to them, and neglected many of our communities in the country. You know, this is a cool place. I was taken aback by that. How is a cemetery a cool place?
There's no ancestor of anyone who's scared ghost means.
Yeah.
Sonke sabantu abantu bazilelele nje kamnandi peacefully and relaxed. So there's nothing wrong about that. It's just a cool place.
You get a sense of her really not thinking about going home, her not wanting to go back home. They've built a community amongst the dead.
Those people burn it all, so they don't care. I mean, we went to school. Most of us here, we went to school, but we can go look for a job, but how? Because we don't have identification. Everywhere we go, they tell us about identification, so we don't have a choice. We need to do the things we do. We recycle for a living, and that's how we survive.
We decided to go in the evening because during the day, you would struggle to find a homeless person at one place. You know, even when you visit sometimes these homeless shelters, they will tell you they're out looking for jobs, they're out looking for food. So the best time to find them was in the evening. We gave City Parks a call to say, we heard that there's this and this happening at one of your cemeteries, and we'd like access. And they were quite open, you know. It's something that they say they've really been struggling with for quite some time now. And I remember when we got there, right next to the gate, there were two gentlemen and a lady who had set up a fire there. It was cold, and it was really starting to get dark. It was winter. And they'd set up a fire, sitting there, and I engaged these gentlemen while we were waiting to get access about what it's like living there and where they came from. One was a foreign national, a migrant who came from Zimbabwe, telling me about how he got to South Africa and how he'd been struggling.
Me, I got here because my family just left me by the town, then I didn't know where to go. So I started working. When I was working, I only lost the job because the boss proceeded and went on to America and started on business there. So from there I can't get even any money to just have something to live.
This other gentleman was a former truck driver who lost everything, and the only thing that he had with him was just his license. So it was the only thing that could get him out of the cemetery, but in the meantime, he had nowhere to stay. So the safest place for him was the cemetery. We also then got to then start going into the cemetery with the security guards. We use our camera light to try and navigate. So you see the headstones, about 4 headstones. There was a shelter, and then in between them is a mattress, right? There's a mattress, and there's like food inside. On the side of the graves, there is a fire. You could see that this is where they cook. And this lady just comes out. And she starts, and this is off air, she has a conversation with us. We asked for permission, obviously, to film her. Would it be okay for you to speak to us about your life living here? And she was like, I don't have a problem, as long as you don't show my face. Yeah, we went live. And I was just so surprised because I just given her talking points and not necessarily the questions. And what she was saying there, this is a cool place. There are no ancestors here, answering those questions that we all want to know.
I asked her about ghosts. She says there are no ghosts. She believes that all of these people that are buried here are sleeping in peace. There is no ancestor that is here. So it's a pretty comfortable, she says it's a cool place. She uses the word a cool place to live in, which basically highlights her plight, saying that at that point there is no way that she could have mended things with her family, and that's how she landed here at the cemetery.
We then moved to what was sort of like a structure, because this is an old cemetery. It's Brixton Cemetery. It's an old cemetery, and there was music coming from that structure, and a lot of voices. So before you even get to that place, you're hearing music and the conversations, and you get there, there's a fire, and that structure is divided, using curtains, using all sorts of stuff. There's someone's bedroom here, and they were like, what are you doing here? It felt like we were invading their privacy, and we were asking for permission, obviously, to film. And there was one lady I remember was sitting at the corner saying to us, no matter how much you try to conceal my identity, there is no parent in this world that does not know the voice of their children. There is no parent that would not recognize their child on TV, even if you try to hide my identity. It's not like we don't have homes. We left our homes because of the circumstances. And you putting us on television, would you letting our parents know where we are? And we don't want that. We don't want to be a part of your filming. We don't want to be a part of that, because a lot of us have different struggles. There's some of us who are struggling with substance abuse. There are some of us who ran away from home because of, sexual assault or all of those kind of things. So we don't want to be put in a position where we're telling our stories and we're telling our perpetrators, we're telling our families where we are. So, and we don't think that they'd be happy seeing us in this condition. So we don't want to be a part of that.
Abangani bami babulewe or kwenzakaleni, angazi ukuthi kwenzakaleni, mara leyo sini leyo abanyamalelele for yona siyayivuma and ngiyayazi and nginonyembeza wayo mara kodwa lo muntu lo ongilandelayo emuva ngiyazibuza ukuthi yena lo muntu umuntu onjani ongenanyembeza, umuntu onamateksi, unemali yonke yamateksi mara kodwa ubulala abantu abangenasona abayithu. Yabo nami kanje angikhona ukubuyela ekhaya kungenxa yakhe loyo muntu loyo.
We also heard reports of children living there, families that live with young children there because of the fact that they don't have homes. So it was really heartbreaking looking at the circumstances there. Another thing, why are you moving from the streets to a cemetery? And a lot of them were citing safety issues, saying that it had become very dangerous living in the streets. There were groups of people, there were gangs in the streets, but also they were telling us about how police are also, the problem in the streets, removing them from certain places, sometimes beating them up, sometimes arresting them. So it's better for them to move to a secured area where there are security guards that are looking after the cemetery, but also where there would be other people that would assist them in feeling safe.
Ukuze size la emathuneni asizanga ngoba siyathanda kunabantu abasicindezelayo abasishayayo ebusuku makulelwe so ebusuku ngaboma 9 ama-security nama-Pakistani sibalekele e-graveyard nathi kuze sihlale lahlalanga ngoba siyathanda siseduze kwe-fence ukubonisa ukuthi nathi amathuna siyawasaba mara asinayo i-choice.
For now, I don't have choice because I don't have anything. I don't have job. Even my family is not here, so I decided just to come and stay in the cemetery for the meanwhile because last month we were being chased by the many security companies around the street. Yeah. I don't know where they want us to go, so I just decided to come and stay in the cemetery.
Today we're going to be planting trees in this cemetery in Brixton as the commencement of the project that's going to be addressing the challenges that we're facing at the cemeteries. We're going to be doing also what we call green fencing, because in terms of what we've been doing by fencing and walling our cemeteries, they don't seem to work. So the best thing is to go back to nature, plant the trees that will help in preventing easy access to the cemetery through the fencing.
So on the night, we had an engagement with City Parks, and they kind of highlighted all the issues that they come across. I mean, they have regular cleanups of the cemetery, they have security guards looking after the cemetery, but they can't get rid of them because they would leave and come back. They would remove some of the stuff, and imagine if you are going to throw everything away, it means this person would have to start afresh and look for a mattress, look for shelter, imagine on rainy days. So they had that difficult task of making sure that they also preserve the dignity of the deceased, the people that died, but also for their families, because can you imagine visiting your loved one only to find someone sleeping on top of the grave? Some people go to cemeteries very early in the morning. Some people's cultures would dictate that they go very early, and you'd find someone sleeping and they don't want you to disturb them. So what about the families then? So they had and they still do, they still have a difficult task of balancing between the two, of saying we don't have the mandate to kick them out, but also we have to keep the space clean. We still have to respect the families of the people that are buried there. You find a person sleeping, how do you say, I need to perform my rituals? All of those things.
The city of Johannesburg, through its social development department, is still devising a plan on what exactly it wants to do with the homeless people that have taken residence at the cemetery. At the same time, there are talks of gathering funds through the finance department to erect a fence, but that will be safeguarded by the security. The planting of the trees are seen as a long-term solution to securing the cemetery.
We also need to maybe review our policies around the management of shelters and see how we can accommodate them and their needs, because it seems like we might not clearly understand how they make living and how they live on the street. And if we take them to these shelters, we're sort of like suffocating them.
It's the issue of homelessness and really the solutions that are needed to address also a lot of our social ills in the country, because homelessness may just be the final stage of what started as a social ill in the beginning. So it highlighted those various issues from our communities, from families, those issues that build up, but also the problem of homelessness and how it can be resolved. The relationship between the people that are dealing with homelessness and understanding how they can better cater, for people who live in the streets and people who want to still be independent, people who would prefer to live in shelters, how to cater for, this group of people who come from different walks of life, but who also have different preferences.
We have never been in a situation where there are people who have decided now to use cemeteries as their home. So it is an unprecedented event of which we need to sit down and find a way forward on how we can address them.
It kind of, gave the impression that homelessness is kind of reaching new heights.